June 15, 1943, Camp McCain, Mississippi. The humid southern air hangs thick over the newly constructed prisoner of war compound as the first transport of German captives rolls through the gates. Dust swirls beneath the wheels of military trucks, and the afternoon sun beats down mercilessly on corrugated metal barracks. Among the prisoners, Obergefreiter Hans Müller squints through the wire mesh of the transport vehicle, his uniform still bearing the sand of North Africa, where Rommel's Afrika Korps had finally met its match. The metallic screech of brakes mingles with the distant rhythmic hammering of construction work. But it is not the sound that will haunt Müller for decades to come. It is what he sees through the fence separating the prison compound from the adjacent defense plant. A woman in coveralls, her hair tucked beneath a bandana, guides a massive truck loaded with artillery shells toward a loading dock. Her hands grip the steering wheel with practiced confidence, backing the vehicle with precision that would impress any Wehrmacht driver. Müller blinks, certain the Mississippi heat has created a mirage. In the Third Reich, women belonged in the kitchen, the church, and the nursery. Küche, Kirche, Kinder. They did not operate machinery that could crush a man, did not handle weapons of war, did not command the industrial might of a nation. The rhythmic ping of welding torches begins to echo across the compound, a sound that will become the soundtrack to a fundamental shift in understanding. The metallic percussion of ideology cracking under the weight of reality. This moment, replicated in prisoner of war camps across America from 1943 to 1945, represented more than cultural shock. It was the collision of two entirely different philosophies of human potential, productivity, and the very nature of civilization itself. For German prisoners who had been indoctrinated with National Socialist beliefs about racial superiority and traditional gender roles, the sight of American women in industrial leadership positions challenged every assumption they held about their enemy and themselves. The scale of what these prisoners witnessed was staggering. By 1943, over 6 million American women had joined the workforce, with more than 300,000 working directly in aircraft production. The woman Müller saw driving that truck was not an anomaly. She was part of the largest mobilization of female labor in human history. While Nazi ideology had deliberately restricted women's roles to support traditional patriarchal structures, American democracy had unleashed the productive capacity of its entire population. The welding torch sparked again, sending showers of orange light across the prison yard, illuminating faces marked by confusion and dawning realization. Before the war, most German soldiers held deeply ingrained beliefs about American society that had been carefully cultivated by Nazi propaganda. They had been told that America was a decadent nation, weakened by racial mixing and democratic chaos, where women had been corrupted by modern ideas and men had grown soft from abundance. Heinrich Himmler himself had declared that American women were masculinized, and that this represented the decay of Western civilization. German soldiers expected to find a nation of pampered civilians who would crumble under the disciplined assault of the master race. They expected American women to be helpless, decorative, perhaps hysterical in the face of war. They had been taught that the natural order placed men in positions of authority and physical labor, while women maintained domestic harmony. This was not merely cultural preference, it was presented as biological truth, part of the natural hierarchy that National Socialism claimed to represent. The ideal German woman was the mother of future soldiers, devoted to the Führer through her dedication to home and family. What they encountered instead shattered these expectations. with the force of a sledgehammer against glass. Muller watched in stunned silence as the woman not only parked the massive truck but began directing a crew of workers, both men and women, in the careful unloading of artillery shells. Her voice carried clearly across the compound as she called out precise instructions about weight distribution and safety protocols. She was not being supervised by a man. She was the supervisor. The welding torch continued its work, each spark a tiny rebellion against everything Muller thought he knew about the world. At the Willow Run plant in Michigan, German prisoners working under guard witnessed women operating cranes that lifted entire aircraft engines. At the Kaiser Shipyards in California, they saw female welders whose output exceeded quotas set by their male predecessors. In automotive plants converted to tank production, women operated massive stamping presses that shaped armor plating with precision measured in thousandths of an inch. Rose Monroe, the original Rosie the Riveter, could drive rivets with a speed and accuracy that impressed even the most skeptical observers. Her hands, steady and sure, guided pneumatic tools that joined aluminum sheets destined for B-24 Liberator bombers. Each rivet was a small testament to capability that Nazi ideology insisted was impossible. The sound of the welding torch provided a constant metallic counterpoint to the prisoners' growing amazement. The rhythm of American industrial democracy in full swing, prisoner Carl Steinberg, captured at Anzio, later wrote to his sister, "I cannot describe to you the shock of seeing American women performing tasks that our finest craftsmen would find challenging. They work with a competence and confidence that defies everything we were taught about the natural order. These women operate machinery worth more than entire villages in Germany, and they do so as if it were the most natural thing in the world." Factory records from 1943 and 1944 reveal productivity statistics that astounded even American managers. At the Glen L. Martin Aircraft Plant in Baltimore, women comprised 60% of the workforce and achieved production rates 17% higher than pre-war levels. They were not merely filling positions vacated by men, they were exceeding the performance standards set by their male predecessors. The welding torch sparked again, and in that brilliant flash, another German prisoner glimpsed something that would haunt his dreams. An American woman teaching welding techniques to a male colleague, her expertise unquestioned, her authority absolute. Government records document that by 1944, American women were operating 95% of all cranes in defense plants, 78% of all welding equipment, and 62% of all heavy transport vehicles in industrial settings. They were not just working, they were leading, innovating, and setting new standards of efficiency and precision. The transformation in German prisoners' understanding was not merely intellectual, it was visceral, emotional, and complete. Men who had been raised to believe in their inherent superiority found themselves forced to confront evidence that contradicted their most fundamental assumptions about human nature and social organization. Obergefreiter. Muller began keeping a secret diary, writing, "Today I watched an American woman repair a diesel engine that our best mechanics at Panzerschule Münster would have declared unrepairable. She diagnosed the problem in minutes and implemented a solution that was both elegant and effective. I find myself wondering what our women might have accomplished if we had given them such opportunities, such trust in their capabilities." The welding torch had become more than a tool. It was the sound of possibility being forged into reality, of human potential being realized regardless of gender or traditional limitations. Other prisoners described similar revelations. Georg Hoffmann, captured in Italy, observed American women operating massive overhead cranes with a delicacy that allowed them to position engine blocks within tolerances of half an inch. Maria Rodriguez, a Mexican-American welder at Consolidated Aircraft, could run a perfect bead on aluminum, a skill that required years to master, and that German welders had considered particularly difficult for anyone with smaller hands. The evidence was everywhere, undeniable and transformative. American women were not just participating in war production, they were leading it, innovating within it, and achieving levels of productivity that exceeded all expectations. At the Boeing plant in Seattle, German prisoners watched in amazement as Phyllis Daly, one of the first African-American women to qualify as a riveter, demonstrated techniques that improved both speed and structural integrity. Her innovations were being adopted throughout the plant, her expertise sought by supervisors and colleagues alike. The sound of welding torches created a symphony of industrial capacity that resonated through the prison compounds, each spark a note in the melody of Americans' abundance and democratic possibility. The transformation in German prisoners' worldviews was documented by camp psychiatrists and intelligence officers who interviewed them extensively. Major Robert Patterson, commanding officer at Camp McCain, reported, "The prisoners' shock at seeing American women in positions of industrial responsibility appears to be causing a fundamental reassessment of their beliefs about American society and their own cultural assumptions." This shift was particularly profound because it involved more than just gender roles. It challenged Nazi beliefs about racial hierarchy, national character, and the nature of strength itself. German soldiers had been taught that strength meant domination, that hierarchy was natural, that some groups of people were inherently superior to others. American women wielding welding torches with precision and authority represented a completely different model of strength, one based on competence, cooperation, and the unleashing of human potential rather than its restriction. The psychological impact was documented in letters home that were intercepted by military censors. Heinrich Weber, a former Luftwaffe mechanic, wrote, "The American women work with a precision and dedication that rivals our finest craftsmen. They are not performing these tasks reluctantly or temporarily. They approach their work with pride, an expertise that suggests they see it as their rightful place rather than an emergency necessity." The welding torch sparked again, and in that light, another fundamental assumption about American society crumbled to dust. Perhaps most shocking to German prisoners was the relationship between male and female workers in American plants. They had expected to see women subordinated, supervised constantly, treated as inferior substitutes for real workers. Instead, they witnessed genuine collaboration, with expertise and authority flowing naturally to those who demonstrated competence, regardless of gender. At the Chrysler Tank Arsenal, German prisoners observed mixed-gender teams working on M4 Sherman tanks. The team leader was frequently a woman, and her authority was unquestioned. Male workers sought her advice on technical problems, deferred to her judgment on quality control issues, and followed her safety protocols without complaint or resistance. Technical Sergeant Dorothy Miller, who supervised tank turret assembly, had developed innovative techniques for electrical system installation that reduced assembly time by 18% while improving reliability. Her methods were being documented and distributed to other plants across the nation. To German prisoners raised on Nazi ideology about female inferiority, This level of technical innovation and leadership authority seemed impossible. The rhythmic ping of welding torches continued, each spark illuminating the gap between Nazi theory and American reality. The prisoners also witnessed something equally challenging to their preconceptions: American women's apparent comfort with responsibility and authority. German women had been systematically excluded from positions of leadership and technical expertise. Nazi ideology insisted this was for their own good, that they were naturally unsuited for such roles and would be unhappy if forced into them. American women in defense plants displayed no such discomfort. They handled responsibility with confidence, made decisions with authority, and appeared to thrive in roles that Nazi ideology claimed would be psychologically harmful to them. This contradiction forced German prisoners to question not just their assumptions about American women, but their beliefs about the natural order of society itself. The welding torch had become a symbol of something larger, the sound of human potential being unleashed rather than constrained, of talent being developed rather than suppressed, of strength being multiplied rather than hoarded. Camp records indicate that German prisoners began requesting additional work assignments that would allow them to observe American industrial operations more closely. Initially, this was attributed to boredom or attempts to gather intelligence, but interviews revealed a deeper motivation. They were trying to understand how a society they had been taught to despise could achieve such remarkable feats of production and organization. The numbers were staggering and undeniable. American defense production increased by 300% between 1940 and 1944, while maintaining civilian production levels that ensured abundant food, clothing, and consumer goods for the home front. German prisoners had been told that democratic chaos and female participation in the workforce would lead to inefficiency and social breakdown. Instead, they witnessed the most productive economy in human history operating at peak efficiency while maintaining high morale and social cohesion. At the Ford Willow Run plant, German prisoners observed B-24 Liberator bombers rolling off the assembly line at a rate of 1 every 63 minutes. Women comprised the majority of the workforce, and their productivity rates exceeded all projections. The plant operated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with 3 shifts of workers maintaining consistent quality and output levels. The sound of welding torches provided a constant reminder of this productive capacity, each spark a testament to the power of inclusive rather than exclusive social organization. The psychological transformation documented in German prisoners extended beyond mere admiration for American industrial efficiency. Many began to question the fundamental premises of Nazi ideology. If American women could demonstrate such competence and leadership, what other Nazi assumptions about human nature and social organization might be wrong? Prisoner Hans Dieter, formerly a true believer in National Socialist doctrine, wrote, "I begin to understand that we may have been deceived about the nature of strength itself. We were taught that strength came from domination, from the suppression of the weak. But I see here a different kind of strength, one that grows stronger by including rather than excluding, by developing rather than limiting human potential." The welding torch sparked again, and in that brilliant flash, another piece of Nazi ideology dissolved into nothingness. The impact of these observations extended beyond individual prisoners to influence their understanding of the war itself. Many began to realize that they had been fighting not against a weak and decadent enemy, but against a society that had successfully mobilized capabilities that Germany had deliberately suppressed. The sight of American women operating with competence and authority in roles that Germany had reserved exclusively for men represented a massive squandering of human resources that Nazi ideology had insisted was natural and proper. Records from the Army Corps of Engineers indicate that German prisoners frequently expressed amazement at the speed and efficiency of American construction projects. What particularly impressed them was the seamless integration of male and female workers in complex technical tasks. At airfield construction sites, women operated bulldozers, surveying equipment, and concrete mixers with the same competence as their male colleagues. The sound of welding torches had become the soundtrack to a new understanding of human possibility. Each metallic ping, a note in the symphony of democratic productivity. Perhaps most profound was the realization that American abundance was not accidental or temporary, but the result of systematic social and economic organization that maximized rather than limited human potential. German prisoners had been taught that abundance led to decadence and weakness, but they witnessed a society that had achieved unprecedented prosperity while simultaneously demonstrating unprecedented military and industrial capability. The transformation was documented in interviews conducted by military intelligence officers throughout 1944 and 1945. Colonel James Harrison reported, "The prisoners' initial shock at seeing American women in positions of industrial responsibility has evolved into a broader questioning of their previous beliefs about social organization, human nature, and the sources of national strength." This questioning was particularly evident in discussions about post-war reconstruction. German prisoners began to express interest in American models of education, industrial organization, and social mobility. They asked detailed questions about how American women had acquired their technical skills, how workplace authority was determined, and how conflicts between male and female workers were resolved. The welding torch continued its work, each spark illuminating possibilities that Nazi ideology had insisted were impossible or unnatural. The symbolic power of American women's industrial roles extended far beyond their immediate productive contributions. For German prisoners, these women represented a fundamental challenge to authoritarian assumptions about social organization. They demonstrated that competence and leadership could emerge from unexpected sources when social barriers were removed rather than reinforced. Technical innovation by American women workers was particularly impressive to German prisoners with engineering backgrounds. At Consolidated Aircraft, Betty Reed had developed a new technique for installing hydraulic systems in fighter aircraft that reduced installation time by 25% while improving system reliability. Her innovation was adopted throughout the aircraft industry and contributed to the increased production rates that were helping to overwhelm German air defenses. At General Motors' Cadillac division, women machinists achieved precision tolerances on aircraft engine components that exceeded specifications. Their work was so precise that rejection rates dropped below 1%, a quality level that German manufacturers had struggled to achieve with their most experienced craftsmen. The sound of the welding torch had become something sacred, the rhythm of human dignity being restored, of potential being realized, of freedom being forged one spark at a time. The documentation of German prisoners' transformation provides insight into one of the war's most significant psychological victories. By demonstrating the productive capacity of an inclusive society, American women had dealt a devastating blow to Nazi ideology without firing a shot. They had proven that diversity was strength, That opportunity expanded rather than diminished when extended to all citizens, and that democratic values could produce results that authoritarian systems could never match. The records also reveal how these revelations affected German prisoners' plans for post-war life. Many expressed intention to emigrate to America after the war, citing not just economic opportunities but social freedoms that they had never imagined possible. They wanted to live in a society where their daughters could aspire to any role their talents could achieve, where competence rather than ideology determined authority, where human potential was developed rather than suppressed. The welding torch sparked one final time, its light illuminating a truth that would echo through generations: that the greatest weapon against tyranny is not violence, but the simple demonstration of human dignity and capability set free. As the war drew to a close and German prisoners prepared for repatriation, many carried with them memories that would reshape their understanding of civilization itself. They had witnessed something unprecedented in human history, a society that had achieved military victory not by suppressing half its population, but by unleashing the full productive capacity of all its citizens. The woman Muller had seen driving that truck in Mississippi had become more than an individual. She was a symbol of democratic possibility, of human potential unleashed rather than constrained, of strength multiplied rather than hoarded. Her hands on that steering wheel had guided more than a vehicle loaded with artillery shells. They had steered history itself toward a new understanding of what human societies could achieve when they chose inclusion over exclusion, development over domination, cooperation over conquest. Years later, in the rebuilt cities of post-war Germany, former prisoners would tell their children and grandchildren about the sound they had heard in American prison camps, the rhythmic ping of welding torches, operated by women whose competence and authority had shattered every assumption about human nature and social organization. That sound had become the rhythm of freedom itself, the metallic heartbeat of a democracy that had proven its strength not through the suppression of its people, but through their liberation. The welding torch had long since cooled, but its echoes reverberated through time, each spark a reminder that the greatest victories are won not on battlefields, but in the quiet moments when human beings discover that they are capable of far more than anyone ever dared to imagine, and that the true measure of a civilization is not what it destroys, but what it builds, not whom it excludes, but whom it includes, not what it fears, but what it dares to become. In the end, the German prisoners had witnessed something more powerful than any weapon, more transformative than any conquest, more enduring than any empire. The simple, revolutionary truth that when human beings are free to develop their talents and contribute their gifts, there is no limit to what they can achieve, no barrier they cannot overcome, no future they cannot build together.